Taking the FTCE Speech-Language Impaired K-12 exam, test code 042, we're here to help. Tune into this video and prepare to ace this test. My name is Kaylee. I'm a certified teacher in Florida and a test prep expert with Study.com. I'm here to provide some detailed information about this exam's competencies and also review the test format. Along the way, I'll be giving helpful tips that you can apply while you prep as well as on test day. Let's jump right in. The FTCE Speech-Language Impaired K-12 042 exam is administered in Florida to certify individuals who have a speech-language pathology background who want to work in an academic setting. This test is designed to measure your understanding of speech-language disorders and how to assess and monitor special education students in need of speech-language services. The exam is made up of 5 competencies. You will be tested on your knowledge of communication and swallowing disorders and relevant educational and therapeutic approaches pertaining to these conditions. In addition, you must demonstrate your understanding of assessment methods, accommodations, assistive technologies, and professional ethics in the education of students with speech-language impairment. Knowledge of philosophical, historical, and legal foundations of communication and swallowing disorders and their impact on the education of students accounts for 10% of the entire exam. The knowledge of typical and atypical communication and swallowing processes and development competency represents 25% of the exam. Knowledge of culturally and linguistically responsive evaluation processes for students served in the school population also makes up 25% of the exam. Another 25% of the total exam is knowledge of culturally and linguistically responsive service delivery techniques for students served in the school population. The final 15% of the exam is covered in the knowledge of ethics and professional scope of practice competency. This exam consists of 80 multiple choice questions. You will have 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete the test, which works out to be about 2 minutes per question. So my first tip is to aim to spend no more than 1 minute and 30 seconds on each question. This way, you are allowing yourself enough time at the end to review all of your answers and revisit those questions that you're not quite sure about. My second test-taking tip is to read each question carefully so that you fully understand what is being asked. You can typically eliminate 2 of the answers once you fully understand the question. And my final test-taking tip is to be aware of tricky questions using words like least, except, and not that are asking for the answer least rather than the answer that best fits the question. Time to explore each of the competencies making up the FTCE Speech-Language Impaired K-12 exam in depth so you know exactly what to expect come test day. Knowledge of historical, philosophical, and legal foundations of communication and swallowing disorders and their impact on the education of students requires that you demonstrate your knowledge of theories and bases of speech and language development and educational and therapeutic practices for related disorders. You should also be familiar with federal and state regulations regarding students with swallowing and communication disorders. Questions in the knowledge of typical and atypical communication and swallowing processes and development competency address the characteristics of typical speech and language development and swallowing. You must be able to discuss various components of mechanisms that control speech, language, swallowing, and hearing, explain differences among communication disorders, and describe characteristics of communication and swallowing disorders. The knowledge of culturally and linguistically responsive evaluation processes for students served in the school population competency measures your ability to identify assessment procedures and terminology for speech, language impairments. You must be able to interpret assessment data, monitor student performance, and communicate assessment findings to families, other professionals, and community agencies. Knowledge of culturally and linguistically responsive service delivery techniques for students served in the school population tests your understanding of strategies used to provide accommodation, set IEP goals, use assistive technologies, and collaborate with families, communities, and professionals. You will also be asked about the prevention and treatment of communication and swallowing disorders and service delivery models for students with these impairments. Ethical practices and the roles and responsibilities of speech-language pathologists in academic settings are among the main topics addressed in the Knowledge of Ethics and Professional Scope of Practice competency. You must also have an understanding of advocacy strategies employed in this profession. So, how should you best prepare for the FTCE Speech-Language Impaired K-12 exam? Here's my next tip. Start with a diagnostic to help you identify your strengths and weaknesses. You might already know a lot about some types of communication disorders, so you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time reviewing material that you're already strong in. Taking a diagnostic on a site like study.com can pinpoint what you know and what you don't. Use the insights from the diagnostic to select the material you need to review and where you should practice. Study.com will create a personalized study plan for you. My next tip is if you're using other materials, you may need to put your own study plan together. Watch lessons to review material you're shaky on. If you feel confident about a topic, do a practice test. If you notice that you're missing a lot of questions, go back and review a lesson. This brings me to my last prep tip. Practice, practice, practice. This will help you get comfortable with the exam's material, the question format, and the timing, and as a result, you'll go into test day feeling confident and prepared. I hope this video covered everything you were wondering about the FTCE Speech-Language Impaired K-12 exam. Check out our deep dives on each competency and watch our practice problem walkthroughs to jumpstart your preparation. Also, check out our test prep course. There's a 92% pass rate for those who have completed the course. Please like and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so you won't miss any new videos when they drop. If there are any specific tests or questions that you would like us to review, please let us know in the comments below and we will get to them as soon as possible. Finally, once you've passed your speech-language impaired K-12 exam, please leave a note in the comments so we can all celebrate your success. Good luck!